bars got that swing. Glasses clink, hear the ice cubes sing. Liquid lunch, pour it smooth, let it flow. Friends round the table where the good times grow. Raise a glass, let the worries slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for today. There's Troy laughing with his gin and a grin, telling stories about where he's been. Boomer's got whiskey, he's loosening his tie, chasing dreams under a midday sky. The bartender knows us, he's mixing with flair. Every sip's a moment we're happy to share. Liquid lunch, pour it smooth, let it flow. Friends round the table where the good times grow. Raise a glass, let the worries slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for the day. The clock don't matter, we're lost in the vibe. Jazz in the air, feel the soul come alive. From martinis to bourbon, we're riding the wave. Stealing this hour, it's the freedom we crave. Sun's still shining, but we're in our zone. This bar's our shelter, our temporary home. One more round before the world calls us back. Savor the moment, keep the blues in the rack. We'll laugh and we'll toast till the afternoon fades. Memories made in these liquid escapades. Liquid lunch, pour it smooth, let it flow. Friends round the table where the good times grow. Raise a glass, let the worries slip away. Liquid lunch, we're living for today. So here's to the daylight, the drinks and the fun. Our liquid lunch, till the next one comes. With a wink and a smile, we'll be back real soon. Chasing that jazz under the high noon.
Salute and welcome. Welcome all of you to the midweek. We are halfway through another one. Liquid lunch is midpoint of the day, and it is the midpoint of the week when it's a Wednesday. So yeah, we're halfway through it. Means we're getting that much closer to the weekend. Looking forward to it. Lynn Green's looking forward to it because she was the first like here today. Welcome, Lynn. So glad to see you. Big Al Presents. Have a great show, my friends. Thank you so much. He has posted his link to this Saturday's watch party over on his channel, The Last Starfighter. Looking forward to that. Enigma Severus, welcome. Says, WTF Wednesday? Where's the food Wednesday? Love it. I need some more food. I am on my eating schedule. Okay, so this is the second day in a row you've been talking about food, completely off topic and unprompted. I'm a little concerned about you, Enigma. Are you hungry? Do we need to open up a food pantry for you? I get the impression you might be practicing intermittent fasting, which my understanding is that's a really, really good thing for your health. But if you were this focused on food, that should be a concern. It should be a concern for your diet. I love you too, Netter. Thank you so much. You are a wonderful, wonderful cheerleader. You're my number one cheerleader. Like, share, subscribe, become a member. She says yes, please. That would encourage me so much. What also encourages me is when you drop me a tip like this. A $2 super chat from Geek Flag with Nate Knows says, "What's up, my people? Hey, Troy. Pour me a whiskey." Understood. Looking forward to hanging out with you today. Connie Cleary says, "Hail to the chat," and hail to Connie Cleary as well. Birdwoman of YouTube. You are a wonderful, wonderful Blue Wrench. I super appreciate you. Yes, it's hump day. It is hump day. I think my first Wednesday liquid lunch, we talked about where that whole idea of hump day comes from. Might be worth checking out. So Bo, welcome, says, was super eating a chocolate cake for lunch. Where did they get chocolate cake from? Are we still allowed to reference jokes from somebody who's been canceled for doing bad things? I don't know. F1 was a great film, good acting, and Apple announced a sequel is in the works. Yeah, I think we talked about this briefly yesterday. I can't remember if it was you or someone else came in and talked about it. I've heard good things about this F1. Have not seen it yet, but I have such a long list of movies that I need to watch to get caught up on all the goodness that people are suggesting. I'm doing great. I love food. Yes, intermittent fasting, 24 hours, 1 day a week, 17-hour fast each day. I already ate, but the second and fourth meal is coming up. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good idea to get on that. Learn to, and Max Miller. Those of you that enjoy his tasting history, his most recent one is about stoicism and what a stoic would eat. Worth looking into, this idea of secular idea. It has nothing to do with spirituality. It just has to do with philosophy and being happy with less. I think everyone could learn from that. Good afternoon, Troy. On my lunch, so I thought I'd join in. Afternoon, Leia Plus Size. Always good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. Jonathan Conroy says, "Hail all, smash the like button and enjoy the show. Please do. Please do those things. I would greatly appreciate it if you did." I made it to Legopolis last night, going to check in with Sarah Jane and K9 Mark III this afternoon. There you go. I am 3 episodes away from finishing Blake 7 on my Blake 7 rewatches on Tuesday nights. And then we have 13 more episodes, which is the final season of Blake 7. And I'm debating what to do after that. And part of me would really like to get into doing a run-through of all the classic Doctor Who. I'm just wondering if there's enough interest in doing that. And when I say of all of it, I mean all of it. I mean all the reconstructions of missing episodes and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear what people think of that. Did you happen to dream about what you spoke about? Maybe remember things the way that you like to remember them. Of course, Enigma is referring to last night's Live from Sparkwood and 21, where we were talking about Lost Highway and the dissociative fugue that David Lynch was talking about. And it was really Boomer who brought up the whole thing about dreams and sometimes dreaming in the third person, sometimes dreaming in the first person. And the idea of remembering things the way you want to remember them, not the way that they actually were. One thing I didn't really get into because I didn't feel like it was directly relevant to what we were talking about. And I don't talk about this too much because my life took a different path. But when I was at university, my major was psychology. I was going to go into clinical psychology and did not. And I don't regret that, but I did learn a lot. And one of the things I learned a lot about is memory. And you can be 100% certain that you remember something accurately, and I guarantee you, you're wrong. There is what you remember, what you wish to remember, and then there's reality. And they are never the same thing. They are never the same thing. What you remember is less like a perfect high-resolution snapshot and more like a very low-resolution, JPEG, highly compressed kind of thing. And sometimes the edges are so blurry you gotta, do this. Think about it. You think you remember the details, but how many of those details match up with what your brother and sister or your mom and dad remember? Sometimes you paint in those blurry details the way you want to remember them. And that is everyone. Everyone does that. That is why, things like, recordings and videotapes and things like that help. It helps to raise the resolution of those memories for you. Yep, love the Tom Baker era, of course. Jerry Bruckheimer production and Hans Zimmer did the score on F1. Yep, I've heard some really, really good things about it. Good afternoon. Well, kaput, here I are, waiting for Julie to come out of her procedure. Yeah, I hope everything goes well. Speaking of procedures, not really a procedure. I'm going in to a specialist on Friday to address some chronic pain that I've been having. I hope we get to the bottom of it. And if you knew what the problem was, you'd see that there was a bit of a pun there. Red Dwarf gets Netter's vote, so that's a possibility too. Netter, I'm going to put you on this as my assistant and co-producer, and as the person who wants to watch Red Dwarf. Do a little of your Google foo and find out how many seasons, how many episodes, what we're looking at if we dive into Red Dwarf. Never realized how much you'd never seen, and I've seen so little of the Peter Davison and Colin Baker era. Yeah, Netter and I went on well, for years now. I've been accumulating all the DVDs. Obviously, all the released licensed ones I've been collecting, but I've also been creating my own DVDs of the reconstructions. So we have gone through and watched every single episode. And by the time we got to the Colin Baker era and the Sylvester McCoy era, both of us were mostly seeing a lot of those for the first time because both of us, completely separately, we didn't know each other at the time, had kind of bowed out during the Colin Baker era because he was so grating, or at least his characterization was. Let's see here. Enigma says, your point about remembering is very true. Many times my mind brings up a memory and I would swear my memory is correct, but I see a picture and the details are different. Yeah. So, for example, tying it to culture, right? Pop culture. There is a lot of people who have skewed memories about the original release of Star Wars. They think they remember, something that wasn't there because it was in a later edition, and they think that it's always been there. Things like, A New Hope, Episode 4, in the opening scroll. That didn't come until, I think it was like the first re-release of Star Wars, just before Empire Strikes Back came out. That's when Lucas added those because he had decided this is going to be retroactively, he was saying that Star Wars, which was really a standalone movie when it first came out, he had now decided this is going to be the first in a trilogy, but it's going to be the second trilogy. That's when it became episode 4. And he figured now's the time to do it because we got Empire coming up. He already knew Empire was going to have a cliffhanger for the third one, so that's why he did it. So people confabulate, and they project that back, and that wasn't the case. A lot of people remember, Biggs being in the original. Besides the trench run, besides his scenes in the trench run, they remember Biggs in the original, and then not in subsequent versions. And again, that's not true. That's people that, like I did, remembering him from, although my memory on this was a little bit more clear, I knew he wasn't in the original movie. But if you had the Star Wars storybook, which I did, if you listen to the NPR audio drama, those scenes are there. So many, and remember, if you saw Star Wars in the theater and then it left the theater, there was no way to see it other than keeping it alive in your memory with storybooks, novelizations, the radio dramas and all that sort of thing until it was re-released. So people tended to refresh their memories with those things and then project those things back onto their original memory. Anyway, the reason I say all of that is because I have one memory that nags at me. I know it must not be true. Because I can't find any other corroboration anywhere that anyone else has a similar memory. And that's the line in the original Star Wars where R2 and Chewbacca are playing the 3D chess. Is that DJRonnieG? Yeah, playing DJRonnieG. And it was a fair move. Screaming about it won't help you. That whole bit. The line, the whole shtick ends with, I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win. And that's all C-3PO says. That's all he's ever said. That's all that, well, I'm not going to say that's all he's ever going to say, because who knows how many more special editions we might have coming up. But my brain keeps telling me there was something else, that they cut that line short. And I don't remember what it was, but I imagined it was something like, let the Wookiee win. We can always get even with him later. Or something like that. I was sure there was something else that he said. But there is nothing to corroborate that. And I must imagine that was an example of me confabulating. Thinking that there should have been something more there, so believing that there was, But yeah. Now I'm not sure what show we're talking about anymore. Is this about Red Dwarf? Seasons 1 to 8, Back to Earth 10 to 12, and Promised Land, about 70 episodes. We could do Red Dwarf for about 1.5 years, maybe. Maybe. Let me bounce something off of you in the chat. My upcoming review of Superman, I'm thinking about coming at it from the angle of whether or not Gunn actually captures the essence of Superman. Thoughts? I think that sounds like a great idea. So I had mentioned earlier in the week, specifically Monday, and then I brought it up on Tuesday. Monday's stream where I talked about why I wasn't going to be seeing Superman was the most watched Liquid Lunch. Hands down. Got a lot of people in here who had never been here before leaving comments. I think I got more than 4 times the average viewership for a Liquid Lunch. I also got more than 12 times, I want to say. I think that's how many I got. Thumbs down on the video. So I upset some people. And good. I think if I'm not upsetting people, I'm probably doing it wrong. And I have wanted to... I don't want it to sound like I want to go back to that well, because I did, it did so well in the algorithms. But there's more that I want to say about it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it for Friday. So last call will probably be talking about the Superman thing. Again, it's going to be absolutely zero spoilers because I will not have seen it. Netter will not have seen it. 99.9% certain Boomer's not going to have seen it. But we're going to talk about the reactions that people are having. And maybe get into that on last call. So yes, I am looking forward to your review, Nate. I really am. Let's see. There are 61 episodes of Red Dwarf, along with 2 movies, The Promised Land and The First 3 Million Years. Okay, so yeah, that must have been what Lynn was talking about. So, okay. At least I know what I'm working with. A 3-part special called Back to Earth was released in 2009. Okay, yeah. So we're probably looking at about 70 episodes. Maybe more if we got to split up movies or something like that. I wish Batman 89 and the rest of Joker's line, where does he get those wonderful toys? Well, go on. Ask him. Yeah. Speaking of which, I will probably next month or the month after, I will be doing a stream talking about Batman 89 again. I don't know if it'll be a liquid lunch or if it'll be a last call or what it'll be, but I am finishing up reading the book Batman Resurrection, which is the novel that takes place between Batman 89 and Batman Returns. And, early reaction is I love it. I love it. This guy, this writer, and I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, really gets not only Batman and the comic book lore, but he gets specifically the Michael Keaton Batman within the Tim Burton verse. He writes this Batman very much with the mindset of Tim Burton and where Tim Burton was going, but tempering it with comic book lore in a brilliant, brilliant way. It does a great job of... There are some little threads that nobody really cares about, but still exist nonetheless, that are left out and not touched on after Batman 89. What happens to Vicky Vale? What happens to their relationship? All of this kind of stuff. What happens to Knox? What happens to all of that? And there's implied threads at the, prior to Batman Returns. Obviously Max Schreck didn't just appear out of nowhere. He was there during the Smilex incident and all of that kind of stuff. What was he doing? How did this impact, for example, Selena Kyle and all this kind of stuff? All of those characters are in this book with decent exposure. And so everything is there, and it's very, very cohesive. And I do want to talk about it. Some great lines in it. So yeah, I definitely want to get back to Batman 89. I know where it comes from. I think it comes from the Star Wars radio play, winning originally aired, C-3PO says, "I like my arms where they are. Thank you very much, R2, but in the replays, it's not there." Okay, I'll have to go back, and I've been meaning to do this anyway, and it's something I can do while I'm editing videos. I could re-listen to the radio drama. You're probably right. That is a distinct possibility. I heard G&G Daily review it. I see the Tom King influence. That's not good. That's not good. Weak, ineffectual man and his mommy wife. Yeesh. Yikes. And Jor-El and Kara mean I will never give it any more time. Okay. I actually agree with you about not watching Superman, Troy, but my nephew already bought the... No. We talked about that offline. I agree with you. If he's already bought the tickets, don't waste the tickets, and by all means, don't waste the time with your nephew. Go do the thing. But I'm just saying, if you're going to do it, might as well do a review, right? Make it worthwhile as much as possible. Your observation on an added line and the idea that there is also is also common. What is amazing is how a mind will have a thought and it becomes part of that memory, which is what makes your brain believe it was in the movie. The mind has multiple thoughts hit all at once, thus giving an accurate memory, but also inaccurate in the way it took in what really took place. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so that's why the best I can do is be mindful of that, pun intended, and try to weed it out and always be skeptical of even my own memory. Just saying I remember it vividly is not enough to convince me. And if someone says that to me, I'm not going to be convinced either. Thank you to FKC 2005, whom we lovingly know as Tim, says, "Troy Bocelli, where are the Auron women at?" And I've always thought that the Auron women were essentially the Blake 7 equivalent of the Betazoid women, right? Almost exactly the same, just with a different name. In Star Trek Online, I have a ship that is it's based on the characters from Blake 7, and Callie is a Betazoid in Star Trek Online for me. And the ship that they use looks like the Liberator. There is a Tholian ship that looks just like the Liberator. So that is the ship that crew uses in Star Trek Online. Already, just about every channel here on YouTube loves the new Star Wars movie. I am not surprised, but that is them. Yeah, not so much. Marvin Montanaro over on that Park Place. I'll bring up his article on Friday. He expressed all the things I was concerned about. Also, Snarky J has some issues with it too. Her rating was meh, super meh. We'll talk more about it on Friday, but I do have a suspicion that there is I want it to be good, so it's better than it actually was kind of thing. I did the same thing, and I've mentioned this many times before. I did the same thing with Dracula Untold. I wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be a great, reboot to the whole Monsterverse, and it just wasn't. It was just weak. But I do tend to fan edit things in my head and make them better, unless it's truly, truly awful. Can't do that with The Last Jedi. There's no fixing that one. Also, did you know that John Lithgow was the voice of Yoda? Yes, in the radio play. Yes, I did know that. That one blew me away. That was just, but it's perfect. It makes sense. Fletcher Williams, I suck at games, says I'm working and lurking. Smash the like button and subscribe if you are not already. Yes, thank you. I super appreciate that. I really do. I frequently find my headcanon has replaced inferior writing. And that therein lies a project that I've long let languish on this channel, and I will get back to. I'm going to start working on some of that headcanon to share with a lot of you guys. Gorilla's Random Thoughts. Kapla! Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. I appreciate, Gorilla, that you come in with the Klingon. There is a now defunct Star Trek role-playing game. It was popular for many, many, many years. Put out by FASA. They had the license to the Star Trek role-playing game, and they made up a lot of canon, some of which actually has made it into real-world canon, but most of it was just a whole different tangent. And one of those interesting tangents was that they imagined the Klingon Empire including all the subjugated worlds, right? And if you were on one of those subjugated worlds, in theory, you could join the Klingon, defense force. So it was possible to be another race and serving in the Klingon Empire, serving on a Klingon ship. And one of those races was essentially just gorillas. They were intelligent gorillas, and they were part of the Klingon Empire. And I think that's a brilliant idea. I love that idea. There is some artwork out there from the role-playing game where you have like original series Klingons, and one of them is a gorilla in that, black and gold outfit. It's kind of brilliant. You need to have Star Trek Online gameplay show and also stream it on Netters too. I would not be streaming it here and on Netters. I do have a separate channel called Kartan the Klingon Cleric. Kartan the Klingon Cleric. That's hard to say. Which is a channel that I started before this one that is now long languaged because I've had struggles with, at least at the time, I had struggles with the whole copyright algorithm and stuff. I've kind of figured things out. I may go back to doing that, but that is where I would probably be streaming that stuff. Which is also a vein in your mind being convinced that something happened when it really didn't. The famous one was Sinbad as a genie. Yes. The whole Kazam or whatever it was. I actually have the commercial that caused that. Yeah. A lot of these, what are they called? Mandala effects are just that. Are misrememberings of things. And when you really dig into why people are remembering them the way they are, kind of makes sense. So, I didn't realize we would get this into, this is almost like a Tuesday stream, just chatting with you guys. But honestly, I don't mind it at all. I think this is awesome. But I do want to refill my drink, and I do want to bring you 2.5 minutes just so that you are reminded of what we've got coming up this week. So right after this, I'll be right back.
You are watching Liquid Lunch, streaming every weekday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. Let's sip together.
This Thursday night, Netter sits down with film analyst and writer Albert Lanier. You'll get to know him, hear about his long history in the industry, and of course, subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's Netters Network, this Thursday night at 9 Central, 10 Eastern.
This week on Saturday Night at the Movies, we have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada as Big Al presents The Last Starfighter on Films with Friends, Saturday at 9 Central, 10 Eastern.
Every Sunday evening, Aged Boomer and Papa Pacelli bring you the rundown of the week's geek news, or at least what they think is interesting. You may have heard about it somewhere else, but Boomer and Pacelli put a spin on it you likely won't hear anywhere else. It's Geeky Geezers, every Sunday evening at 8 Central, 9 Eastern.
This week on Live from Sparkwood and 21, an actress begins to adopt the persona of her character in a film as her world becomes nightmarish and surreal. Join us as we watch the first half of David Lynch's Inland Empire this Tuesday at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on Deleted Scenes and Affiliates.
Just why is Servalan bound for Sardos, a planet in the outer darkness of the galaxy? And is it worth Avon risking all their lives to find out? It's Moloch, this Tuesday on Last Call Presents Blake 7 at 10 p.m. Central, 11 Eastern.
We now return to our liquid lunch.
And Lynn Green bringing the answers for me. She says, Troy, the gorillas were from Prime Directive. They were Hilidarians. Though I incorporate those races with FASA and John M. Ford's setting. Yeah, a lot of John M. Ford, he was an author who did a lot of novels. And a lot of that was incorporated into the old FASA. There was FASA, and there was a Starfleet Battles, which was more of a ship-to-ship combat simulator that also drew off of John M. Ford and whatnot, and incorporated a bunch of lore that was extraneous. Again, there's a lot of confabulation that goes into it. There were all these different licensees that all drew from the same well of non-canon stuff, and there was a lot of overlap. But not only was there Starfleet Battles, but FASA also had their own ship combat simulator, and people tended to combine and mix. This is a great quote. I think she's quoting from Prime Directive. And though I had slain a thousand foes less one, the thousandth blade found my liver, and the that's a hard word to say, thousandth foe said to me, now you shall die, now none shall know, and the fool looking only down, believed this, never seeing above him the naked stars, each one remembering. Yeah, that was John M. Ford, right? I believe so. Yeah. Let's see. Ah, me and my monkey strolling into my chat space. Thank you so much for being here, me and my monkey. Yeah, WTF, Troy. WTF, Troy. Exactly. Correction, Slirdarians were the gorillas. The Herodarians were the reptilian, almost Gorn. See, that sounds backwards. You'd think the Sildarians would have been the reptilians. I would see where that come from. Yeah, Klingon proverb written by Ford. Yeah, I thought it sounded familiar, and I've read a lot of that Klingon lore. I do try to keep it separate and remember all of that is beta canon until otherwise, grafted in. This whole idea of Klingon, the original series Klingons, the ones with the smooth heads, right? The idea that they were some sort of genetically modified Klingons for the purposes of infiltration into the Federation. All of that started with Ford and his writings and the role-playing games and all of that. That's where that... Yes, the Final Reflection. That's what it was. This whole idea of it being human fusion Klingons is what they called it. And this idea that nobody knew what Klingons looked like until the V'ger incident. They all, thought that Klingons looked like humans and that they could easily infiltrate the... It was kind of a weak sauce kind of, explain it away kind of thing, but it caught on with the fandom and kind of got finally during the Enterprise era, Scott Bakula and all those guys got incorporated into actual canon with a retcon saying that Klingons looked like the Klingons we know until there was this accident with a virus. They were experimenting on gene therapy, and they were working with human augment DNA, and it created this pandemic, I guess you could call it, that spread throughout the Klingon Empire and caused them all to lose their ridges and be disfigured and so on and so forth, which I think is actually a brilliant idea. And if you really look at the evolution of the Klingon makeup from motion picture onward, you could kind of believe that they were slowly trying to overcome the loss of Klingon ridges and restore their appearance. Because if you look at the Klingons in the motion picture and compare them to the Klingons you see in Next Generation, for example, or even the later Star Trek movies, big differences, right? First off, it's come to be that the Klingon ridges look very organic. They vary mostly based on family, right? Worf and Alexander have the same head ridges. Lursa and Betor have the same head ridges. So there's a family relationship there that you could tell by the crest of their foreheads. Whereas in Star Trek the Motion Picture, there is a single ridge, and then everything is bald, and then they got that hair thing going on, right? But it's this weird ridge that comes down to the nose, goes up over the head. And every Klingon looks exactly like that in that shot. So unless everybody serving on the Amar was related, we're going to assume that maybe they had some sort of work done, shall we say. And then when we get to Star Trek 6, right? Is it Star Trek 6? Yeah, Star Trek 6. You see a lot more Klingons looking a little bit more natural, right? Maybe they've gotten their genetics fixed, but some of them are a little bit off, right? They look a little less than organic. Like maybe they still have some implants or something from previous attempts. And then there's Chang, of course, right? Who still without the bumps, and he's bald. So it does look like there's this progression. And then, of course, you get to Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and the original 3 Klingon Dar Masters from the original series, who didn't have ridges, now have their ridges back. Like, okay, they've found the genetic cure, so to speak. Yeah, see, I have some real problems with the whole fusion thing. It makes no sense. It makes no damn sense. Right? I mean, what's the plan? What was the Klingon plan for that? Oh, we don't want them to know what we look like, so we're going to make all of our Klingons that encounter the humans look like humans. I mean, the fact that they're in a Klingon uniform on a Klingon ship, let that not, ruin the illusion that we look like humans. I mean, it's kind of weird. It's really, really strange. Plus, we also know that, even Arnie Darvin, right? McCoy, Kirk, I mean, Jim, this guy's a Klingon, They have internal differences. So, I will say this, too. I do feel like a storyline that they did in Star Trek Discovery with I forget the Klingon infiltrator on the Enterprise or what the Discovery, whatever it was, kind of works as a great introduction to that whole idea of how Arnie Darvin could have come about. So, I mean, there was some good kernels of lore there in Star Trek Discovery in relationship to the Klingon. Doesn't make up for the other crap stuff that they did. But yeah, this whole human fusion thing made no sense. The idea of an Arnie Darvin, that makes sense. But to just generically create a whole race of Klingon human fusions for infiltration reasons makes zero sense. I do think that the augment thing makes a lot more sense. They at least put the thought into it to make it make some kind of sense. I've been watching the first season of Strange New Worlds past few days. What's so frustrating is the cast is good. Some of the stories have very good bones, but they always manage to F it up. Yeah. That's the other thing, too. There's a lot of things I like about the Klingons and the Klingon uniforms. I like the black and gold Klingon uniforms. It looks like kind of like a reimagining of the original series costumes, with in mind what is coming up in the Next Generation. And I'm like, that's actually pretty good. The makeup is a little waxy. I think they've done a poor job on that. It looks... Unless, of course, they're going for... I don't know what they're going for. They're probably putting in less thought than I put into it. I thought Mark Leonard in the motion picture looked less human than Lloyd in Star Trek 3 or later TNG Klingons. Yeah. Again, I'm going to say that because of the weak makeup effects in... let's say it rudimentary makeup that was done in the motion picture, I feel justified in saying that's more likely cosmetic surgery than it is some sort of a correction. By the time you get to Christopher Lloyd, I think they're starting to correct the genetic abnormality. So, yeah. Or there is the possibility, one could make the argument that not all Klingons were affected by the virus, so there were outliers that never contracted the disease. I even like the design of the Enterprise on the inside, but it should have been a new ship. This whole show... Well, that is the biggest problem, right? It's less about anything else other than the lack of attention to canon. They've made it very clear that this is not... Despite calling it the Prime Universe, it is not what they call the Prime Universe and what we think of as the Prime Universe are not the same thing. And I've mentioned this before. When the Skydance merger goes through and Kurtzman is out, so is all of the canon from all of these Kurtzman treks. This whole distinctiveness, 20% difference or whatever it is, that is real for a real reason. There are rights issues related to this. And this will all go away. It must, legally speaking, unless Skydance pays royalties to use it. And they know it's not worth it. So their breaking canon was intentional. It distinguishes it from what came before. Most Cardassians have the same ridges too. Yep. Well, you can say that about all the races, right? The new Romulans have ridges, you know. It seems like Bajorans have little ones on their nose. It's like every alien has some level of bumps on their face and head. You know, that's what makes them you know. Prequels have to do prequels to make the superior original version a sequel to their creation. Yeah. Wasn't so much hiding identity as thinking like the enemy. Does that make a lot of sense? I mean, that makes about as much sense as the Strange New Worlds. I change my genetics so that we become Vulcan, and suddenly we're all logical. And we have a lack of emotions because that's how it works. You know, that's not how this works. That's not how any of it works. I thought it was dumb when they did it in Strange New Worlds. I'm sorry, Lynn. I still think it's dumb in the original FASA canon. I think that it was the kernel of a good idea, and I think that Enterprise made it work. You know. I feel like a number of Star Trek shows did not have enough mixed species. Maybe that would have been something cool to explore more of. Of course, I maintain Star Trek The Next Generation was the best one. There was a lot more hybrids than you might think. I mean, what was it? Kalar. Kalar is half human, half Klingon. B'Elanna is half human. There was a Cardassian infiltrator in Voyager who had a child with a human. So it would have been half Cardassian, half human. There was a child born on the Voyager who her mother was pregnant when they came over to her mother was human, her father was, I forget what alien race he was, and she was born with the nose and head spikes of her father. And in all of these cases, with the exception of Kalar, they were all natural births as far as we could tell. Whereas there's a line where Kalar is talking with Deanna Troi, and Deanna's like, I didn't know that humans and Klingons could interbreed. And she says, my parents had some help, implying that there was some genetic assistance in her conception. Spock is half human. So there are a lot of hybrids. In fact, so much so that it's a little unbelievable. More easy explanation, they should have simply said that there were two Klingon ethnic groups of Klingons. The ones that look more human were the ones in power until the Kling. Yeah, that was I think that was part of the FASA story, to be honest with you. According to Scotty, not even an admiral had a stateroom as grand quarters on the Enterprise D. Admiral Kirk sure didn't, but Captain Pike now... See, that's the problem. The original series always meant for the Enterprise to feel like a submarine or a battleship or something like that. A little bit cramped, utilitarian. By Next Generation, when you have these big sprawling ships that are basically mini star bases with warp drive, where you have kindergartens and children and families and, hydroponic gardens and all this kind of stuff, gets a little bit opulent, right? And that's why everyone has such nice quarters. But then the Borg happen, right? And suddenly you see a shift back to utilitarian, because it's like, okay, it's dangerous out there. We should not be putting children and families on big, expansive ships. We need to cut the fat and get back to defend the galaxy, There is a video on YouTube that did a review of the episode The Game. I have to find it. Interesting take. I would love it if you find that. Shoot me a DM with that. I'd like to check it out. Eventually, Seven was half Borg by the end. Yeah, not really the same as a hybrid, but yeah, I get what you're saying there. Naomi Wildman, that was her name. Yes, Naomi Wildman. I liked her. I liked that little girl. She was great. She suffered from the same rapid aging disease that Alexander had. I jest. That's soap opera child aging. It's not like there was a disease in the Star Trek universe or anything like that. I'm surprised there's not a whole lot more half-breeds upon Star Trek, because humans will have anything, yeah. Well, but see, this is what a lot of people have pointed out. The idea that humanoids, even if they have a common ancestor, millions of years ago, thousands of years ago, the idea of them being able to intermix is very, very unlikely, especially when you look at species on Earth that can't intermix. Humans and chimpanzees can't intermix, except in sci-fi and whatnot. Even, what is it, horses and donkeys can't really intermix because their offspring are sterile. So the idea that humanoids that evolved separately on separate planets would be able to intermix is very unlikely. Sometimes you do have to give them, you need wide hallways in order to film in. It is still a film set, and you still have to get the cameras in there. Let's see. Yeah, I am getting to the end here, so I really do need to wrap this up. So it does sound like there's a lot of interest in some Star Trek content. Maybe I do have to start up the Klingon cleric again. I'll have to think about that. But good. I'm glad there's interest there. I'm glad there's interest. Maybe we will get back to some Star Trek content in the future. But anyway, for now, I'm going to leave it there. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for our liquid lunch for the midweek. Got nothing tonight. I should have a D&D game myself, in my personal life. I hope that happens tonight. And tomorrow, Netter has a wonderful journalist guest that we will be talking to on Thursday Things. And, of course, Liquid Lunch tomorrow. So I thank you guys all for hanging out with me today. You guys really do encourage the heck out of me. I super appreciate all of you. You guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And salute. See you on the next one.
Goodbye. Hope to see you again real soon.
So here's to the daylight, the drinks and the fun, our liquid lunch, till the next one comes. With a wink and a smile, we'll be back real soon, chasing that jazz under the high noon.